I'm Chris Arnold, founder of The Brand Within. I'm today joined for the second conversation with Rob Wells, estate agent down in Hove. And the topic today is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about competition. And it's something that to be perfectly honest, I've never understood about the estate agency sector. And I made a comment 6 months ago, probably 9 months ago, on Chris Watkins' couch that estate agents that door knock were losers. And I want to start by bringing in a quote from Peter Thiel, who's the founder of PayPal. And he basically is saying that competition is for losers. There's also another quote from Jack Welch, who's a former CEO of General Electric GE. And it's, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. And those are the sort of quotes that guide my thinking in terms of estate agency. As I say, I've never really understood why estate agents have or feel a need to compete. It's produced a very toxic market. There's a constant comparison and endless rejection. There's always a search for validation. It's really unrelenting stress. It's unhealthy environment. And I question whether there's actually a need to compete. So Rob, great to talk to you again. You want to sort of give me your views on competition? I know you're a boxer. You've told me that you're a dog with a bone when it comes to things. So I guess you are competitive. And I understand that competition in sport is fun and has its positive aspects. But I question whether it's got a place in business.
Hi, Chris. It's good to see you again. And yeah, competition is it's an interesting topic because, in all honesty, I used to be concerned of competition. Nowadays, competition doesn't pay your bills. So when you get to understand that you've got to take your own accountability for your business, if you focus on what the others are doing, you're probably going to let the ball slip and you're potentially going to start to cause a bit of chaos in your own world. So identifying the sports side of things into this industry, the majority of property brokers, estate agents that I've met in my career over 20 years of doing this job is most of them like reassurance. They like to be told they've done a good job. They get that. That's their bug. That's their drug, if you like. And I have as well in the past taken things quite personally when things haven't gone right, and it may have been that I've been following other competitions and say, well, they seem to be doing pretty well. Maybe I should try that. But actually, when you realise in your own path that you've got to do what you've got to do, I think competition just becomes something in the background that you go, do you know what, you just do you, I'm going to do me, and maybe we might be able to collaborate together. So I think competition is good because if you're not performing and other people are, then you need to change something. But at the end of the day, you can't compare your chapter 33 to someone's chapter 1.
Yeah. In terms of you're not doing so good and other people are, that really brings in the aspect of their strategy versus your strategy and the tactics that you're using. I mean, the end goal, the objective is still the same, but everyone has a different strategy for running their business. So comparing your results to their results really isn't comparing apples to oranges.
No, absolutely not. And also, if you look at the comparison in house prices to where I am, you'll be lucky to buy a 2-bedroom flat, but a good quality one for less than 750,000 quid. Mm-hmm. So, if you up north, you could buy a large house for that sort of price. So, a road just around the corner from me, the average house price is 3.5 million quid. So, if you're driven by money, which I have to say, most estate agents I met, they do like their shiny objects, me being one of them. But I think if you like we said in the last meeting, if you base your service on customer care rather than market share, and stop putting all these poxy pie charts of how much of a market share you've got. And, why don't people have a pie chart of all the good testimonials they've had as opposed to all the bad testimonials, right? Why do I need to see and actually just on this, for someone that actually publicizes their pie chart to say how many properties they've got on their books as a seller, I would go, well, what's going to focus them on selling my property?
Mhm.
So I believe that this industry now changed in this more of a property broker world now, as opposed to estate agents. Everyone's out for themselves. It is, if you go, well, do you know what? I'm actually going to just double my fees from 1% to 2%.
Mhm.
And if I lose half my business, it doesn't make any difference anyway,
Yeah.
because I've doubled my fees. But the majority of them probably will stick. The thing
Yeah.
is none of our agents, I believe, there is a minority of agents don't actually believe how good they are at the job, but they also don't know what comes in with it, and actually should be able to turn around and say, do you know what? This client's actually going to be a bit too much competition for me, and I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this competition. So, respectfully, go with someone else.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of competition, it's that comparison that associates you with every other agent. And from my perspective, not being an estate agent, from my perspective, if the industry has got such a low or poor reputation in terms of trust, why would you want to associate yourself and align your brand with other brands that that haven't got the trust? So I mean, if I was XYZ estate agents in Solihull, I was comparing myself to Purplebricks. It's basically affiliating myself with all those negative comments and perceptions. Whether they're a good agent or not is irrelevant. People have a perception of a estate agency that it's a low trust sector. Why would you want to compare yourself to other people within that low trust sector? Why not detach yourself, become totally independent from that, and say, okay, let's break away from the typical perception of estate agents, and do our own thing instead of competing to prove that we're better. When actually, you can't actually prove that you are better, and that brings in the sort of the Simon Sinek, the Infinite Game book, which a lot of people will be familiar with. But if they're not, it's basically Simon Sinek says that there's the finite game where, like boxing or like football, there's a set period of time. There's known rules. The players are known. There's a referee to control everything, so that the end result is a finite result. In business, and especially in a estate agency, there are no rules. The players aren't known. There is no referee to say whether you can do the right thing or the wrong thing. And that, being an infinite game, means that estate agents can pretty much say or do whatever they like, obviously within the law.
Sorry, just to challenge you on that. I think there is a misconception of what people actually understand estate agents or property brokers do. Okay. Yeah. So you saying about what makes us different, and I go back to our last meeting that we had. I set up Wells Independent Property Brokers, not as an estate agent, as a property broker, to say, right, I'm going to do your canvassing, I'm going to instruct your property, I'm going to do the viewing, I'm going to do the sale progression, I'm going to get you through to exchange of contract, and I'm going to get you to completion. The truth of it is until once you've got the buyer and you've got an offer agreed and you've done all your due diligence to make sure they can afford it, etc., technically it's out of our hands. Okay, we can't, as a property broker, yes, we can help facilitate moves, like, if the surveyor's been a bit slow, we need to chase the surveyor, or if the mortgage broker's not around, or the conveyancer, or speaking to the vendor to say, look, are you still wanting to go ahead with this, because we're quite a few months down the line now and your buyer's been a bit agitated. As a property broker, we are just marketeers. That's all we are. And then we become a counsellor, just to go, I know how stressful this is. Unfortunately, you didn't listen to all the advice I gave you at the very beginning. And because of that, now we're sort of stuck in this situation, which is, I don't want to be here to say I told you so, but I've been there for 20 years, and I only wanted to make your life as easy as I could make mine, because then we all walk away happy. So the competition of the brokers, I mean, as I say, I don't know how many property brokers are there. Thousands of them. You know, there used to be hundreds of estate agents. Now there are thousands of brokers. So, as someone said to me once before, there's enough clouds in the sky, right? We don't need to be fighting over the same business. But if I've got a client that doesn't want to necessarily deal with a certain agent because they've had a bad experience with it or with them before, which also I'd just like to touch on, don't go and tar everyone with the same brush just because you've had a bad experience with one bad estate agent in that office. Because newsflash, we do have bad days, and that's where you've got to. It's been a completely misconstrued agent industry, just purely because we should feel bad because we're going to say to someone, you're going to get 98% of the money that is sold from your property. I only want two. Right? I only want two. Your other agent might want one, but I've been doing this 20 years, and the majority of my fees, I'm pretty confident I can get an extra 10 grand more than most people. I'm not going to go out there and say I'm the best negotiator out there. I think you're going to struggle to find one better, but I know my worth. Yep. And if I'm not prepared to work for you and I'm going to walk away from you, that's just me protecting myself, myself, so I can look after my other clients, who other people are going to be trying to get in as part of their competition.
Yeah, no, I mean that is it in a nutshell. You know, you're focusing on what you can do instead of saying, okay, well, what are the other agents doing? What are their fees? What are their valuations? You know, what are their KPIs? We have to improve because they're doing this. We have to, you know, be cheaper because they're that fee. So what you've just explained, you know, I only want 1%, I only want 2%, perfect scenario. The competition aspect comes where that is put to one side, and then you sort of say, okay, well, because they're doing it cheaper, you know, we have to do it cheaper, or because they're overvaluing deliberately, we have to do the same. So that's the negative consequences of competition. And the thing about competition, it's actually encouraged by the bosses. It's actually encouraged to a huge extent by the trainers. It's encouraged by the software companies, the CRM systems. I mean, let me just read something I dug up the other day. It's basically an email marketing campaign which started off with competitive edge sharpened, and it's data and information on who in the area undervalues, overvalues, and how does my price strategy compare? Is my fall through rate in line with my patch? Which competitors are gaining market share? Can I speed up my transaction times? And one of the agents who was sort of endorsing the software said, you know, great for sharing with the public and sets you up as a trusted authority brand in your marketplace. I mean, that basically is encouraging the competition, you know, trying to be a dominant player in your marketplace. I understand the sort of desire to be that, but that can be achieved without competing and without sort of looking at comparables and saying, okay, well, they've got X market share. What do we need to do to get, you know, a better market share, you know, from where we are now?
Well, I would go back to you to say, when you go back to market share, and again, I think it's because, again, there is a number of estate agents. I'm not going to say a majority or a minority because I don't know the stats, but you know, we do like our egos to be fluffed up, and winning competition is going to fluff up our egos. I'm not afraid to admit that. You know, there'll be many people that will. You know, to know that you've won an instruction over a number of estate agents is like, yeah, it's a bug. You know, and as I said to you beforehand, with the door knocking, I know if I knock on one door and I get a yes from that person, I can almost guarantee you the next one's going to be a yes as well, because you've got you know, that element of desperation has come away because it's like, oh, just knocked another door and I've just had another door slammed in my face. So I think the issue that we have in estate agency is PR, right? People aren't persistent or relentless enough. Right, just because someone says no the first time, it doesn't mean they're going to say no the next time, right? Just next opportunity. Just play with the words and play with the market. Do what you need to do. in order to get your instruction. The biggest, when you talk about percentages, someone, a very good friend of mine said to me, he said percentages don't pay bills, sterling does. And would you rather have 1% of 10 grand or 10% of 500 of 5 grand, right? The difference is you're going to end up with more money in certain instances just because you're playing around with figures. My school teacher, my technology teacher said to me, bullshit baffles brains. And it's true, right? People can't typically work out maths as good as what some of us can do. Just like I'm not particularly good at writing. My strength is in numbers, my weakness is in writing. And again, remember having that meeting with Christopher that one time when he said to me, when you can work out what your strengths are and you can get someone to fill that gap, and then they can get someone to fill their gap. Actually, there is no I in team, as they say, and the dream work, teamwork makes the dream work. So I think a lot of people have to go off and fail first of all, and realize they can't do all of this, and you can't compete with all the competition. And if you just focus on what you're doing, trust me, you will get yourself out of a rut. I've been in a few, as you well know. So it is. I think people get the fear of judgment of being criticised online. I've worked with many agents, personal independent brokers, to help assist with going right. If you're spending too much time going out doing viewings, you've either priced your house wrong or you haven't done a video. Chances are they probably haven't done both, and that is the issue. I don't believe that these agents, I'm not going to go and call out any individual agent because, like I say, there's some good and there's bad in all of them. But if we can get people to start to understand that actually, as you well know, doing searches up front and other bits and pieces up front, the process is the reason why people aren't moving. It's not the competition, it's the process. It takes too long. And no one's prepared to put their head against the parapet and go, do you know what? Start taking accountability. That's the truth of it. And I think that when I go and present to people and say, right, I'm not your cheapest. I know my competition is a lot cheaper. However, do your searches up front. Do this up front. Do this up front. Do this up front. Do this up front. So there's nothing hidden at all. So when we put the house to the market, any offer that's made, if a survey's already been carried out as well, it's already got a price mark to it. But it doesn't matter how good I am at selling a property. If a surveyor wants to go and downvalue that property, there is absolutely nothing I can do apart from try and defend it. And let's be fair, sometimes when vendors have it out with the surveyors as well, it doesn't really do them any favours either. So it goes back to what I said at the very beginning. People have to understand what a property broker does, an estate agent does. We are just there to get you the best price possible. And if you take our advice, it will happen a lot quicker. But if you're an order taker and you put the house on the market to what the price the vendor wants, and the vendor ties you into a 16-week contract or gets tied into a 16-week contract, it's just like you say, there is no rule book, and that's why it's such a mess.
Yeah. And, that's really why I think, the question I always ask a lot of agents is, if you didn't have to compete, would you?
Yeah.
And that comes back to sort of one of my favorite topics, which is core values. And people have a core value of being competitive and relentless and determined. And those are the sort of people that can compete, should compete.
Okay, so just on that then, sorry to interrupt you on that. The thing is I'm not targeted to hit the most amount of instructions, right? I'm targeted to sell properties.
Yeah.
Corporate agents, independent property brokers, high street agents have got targets to hit because they got bills that they've got to pay, right? I've only got to pay my bills. That's it. They got bills to pay. Yeah. Now, the thing is because I collect money up front for instruction payments, that allows me to pay off the dividends to everything that I need to do. And then once it's then sold, if the figure is for the sake of this £1,111, then I'm going to take £1,111 off their bill at the end once they complete to say, listen, you're going to pay for it up front. There's no risk to me. However, you stick with me, I'll pay for it at the end. comes off your feet, right? So he said, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, right? I'm going to make this easier for you, but I can't guarantee that you're not going to walk away from me. And again, when you talk about this competition side of things, is if there's an estate agent that's gone out that's overpriced a property, let's say for £1,000,000, and it's only worth 800,
Yeah.
and it's just sat on the market for 16 weeks to they're tied into one of these contracts, or 24 weeks, whichever the contract they've done, or 8 weeks, they can't do anything. Not move. So without me knocking on that door to go, do you know what? You've got a beautiful house. I've got to be honest, I think it's slightly above price, and that's probably why you haven't sold. But would you give me a shot? Right? And this is what I do. Right? I think the biggest fear for yourself, Chris, is you don't like competition yourself. Which we've had enough conversation now that we know each other well enough to sort of know that I thrive off of it. Yourself is you don't feel the need or the requirement for it, and that I totally respect. But the thing is if we don't have agents that thrive on competition, we're going to end up with a much worse industry, because there'll be just people that'll be just leaving houses on the market for sale. Vendors, you've got to remember, a lot of people are selling houses now because they've got no money. They're trying to get money out of their houses. Some people are selling their houses due to a breakdown in divorce and marriage. Some people are selling their houses due to domestic violence. Some people are selling their houses because they need a bigger property, right? There is only one positive move in that at the moment, whereas in the other four are negative moves. So you've got a negative mindset within this marketplace anyway, to start off with.
Yeah, I mean, let's sort of go back on that quote that I'm not competitive. I mean, in my early days, I was competitive. I was a golf pro. I used to play in golf tournaments, so I've got competitive understanding.
Yeah.
Where I am now is slightly different, because I sent you a quote yesterday, which is basically, you can't have what's mine, and I don't want what's yours. That's the sort of attitude I've got now. Nobody can take anything away from me. If I want to keep it, it's mine. Nobody can take it away. And I don't want anything that anybody else has, because it's not a best fit for me. You've got it. You're a fit for that person, hopefully. But it's irrelevant to me. I've got my own world. I've got my own sphere. I'm happy with that. I don't need to compete with you to take away your business from you. I'm quite happy with what I've got, and nobody can take it away from me either. That's the sort of world I live in now. And it's not a sporting competitive world, but I understand that people want to be sporting and competitive. My argument is that if you're going to do that, the consequences are that you're playing in a game which has no rules, and you can't be upset and annoyed when you're losing.
No, absolutely not. But then you can't be upset and annoyed if you're losing at anything in life. I mean, the thing is if you can't handle losing, and we said it in the last meeting, losing, rejection, all of those things are horrible. No one likes them, but it's just part of life. You've got to understand it, and you've got to deal with it. We live in a world now, unfortunately, I believe, which is massively too soft. I grew up, as I said to you in our conversation, last time. I grew up with a father who was a strong businessman, very, very strong businessman, very successful. And he drummed that into me. Not to say he treated me bad as a kid, because he didn't, by any means, but he challenged me, which is what I believe has made me this individual now, is to try and challenge why other people think in the way that they think, because I know I think differently. And I believe that that's the best way to be. When you talk about your sports that you were doing in golf, I was at a boxing event on Saturday night. A guy that I sort of picked up on, and we were looking to sponsor. Actually, he was a golfer himself, and I said to him, "Are you still golfing?" And he said, "Oh no, I've gone off and I've gone to work for myself now. I'm a Sparky." And I said, "Oh cool, how's it going?" He said, "Oh, it's really busy, but I've got no time to play golf anymore." And the thing is I said to him, I said, "Well, what's your passion? Where do you want to be?" And he sort of, I think, lost the bug for the golf side of things, and realised that the money comes in a lot quicker from doing the electrical work, that he can live a life that supports him. See, as I said to you, historically, when times got tough for me and I moved into the woods, where so I could save my rent money in bits and pieces to rebuild the business again.
Mhm.
If a lot of people don't have that opportunity to do that, you know, I was pretty mad to do it, if I'm honest, but it humbled me quite a lot because I was in a different place. But again, I allow competition to get under my skin, which is why I started to fail.
Yeah.
And that's why I take on board what you're saying. It is when you realize that failing is possibly the best thing that will ever happen to you in life, but for some reason we're told not to fail.
Yeah.
You'll realize it's the best time to learn.
Yeah, sure, totally agree. No, I mean, I think the argument I've got against competition is that the perception is that everybody in the industry has to compete. And I think, you know, it's great for those that are competitive naturally, but if you're not competitive, if you're creative, if you're kind, if you're altruistic, whatever, if those are your core values, there is no need to say, okay, well, I'm going to compete and try and be better and you know, go down that stupid marginal gains route to make myself better. You know, you play to your strengths and you sort of try not to have your weaknesses, you know, too much to the fore.
Mm.
And I think the perception in the industry is that, you know, everyone has to compete. It's just the way of life in a state agency. And I think there's an alternative. And the alternative is something that a guy in New York called Jay Acunzo mentions. And it's to be their favorite. Instead of being the best, be the favorite. And if you take that in the perspective of the music industry, Elvis didn't compete with Michael Jackson. The Beatles didn't compete with the Rolling Stones. Beyonce doesn't compete with Taylor Swift. There is no competition in the music industry, much as you might think there is. There isn't. They're just
they're trailblazers, though.
Exactly. They're creative artists doing the best they can, expressing themselves. And you know, if that was the estate agents in this industry, you'd have you talking about what you're passionate about. I'd be talking about what I'm passionate about.
But do you care what people think of you?
No.
So why does it bother you?
Why does what bother me?
Well, because competition is good, regardless of right. Competition is good, right? You have to deliver yourself a thick enough skin to understand that there are going to be certain people that don't like you, right? And that may be competition because you are better than them, and it may be better and actually they might have missed out on an opportunity. I don't care now what people think of me. I used to, okay? And I think we live in this world now that we have to assume that everyone has to accept us, right? And just because we are in this stage now where we have to believe that everyone has to accept what I'm doing is the right thing to do. No, just do what you need to do. Don't worry about what anyone thinks of you. And I can promise you're going to be way more successful, because if you allow that little ear in the back of you nagging at your head, just saying, you need to worry about this, you need to worry about this, you're just never going to get on.
But if you're not worrying about the competition, you have no competition. So you're not competing.
Well, no, I'm not competing, but they're competing. I don't care what people think of me. I said,
yes, you're basically not competing.
Well, if I'm going to get to a house that they can't sell, then I am competing.
Why?
Why? Because if I've got a client that wants to buy that house and they're registered with that estate agent, they haven't got through the door, and I know it's going to be right for them, and they go and buy it, then I'm competing for the business. It's business. You can't get into business and not want to be competing against people, because otherwise you're just going to be a lame duck. You're just going to sit there. That's just purely my opinion. I think you might have to go past too.
Well, I mean, going back to Simon Sinek and the finite and infinite games, you know, you're competing in a crazy marketplace, which is stressful, and it's relentless pressure to try and prove that you're better. And going back to that quote that I opened the chat with, which is, you know, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete, said by Jack Welch at General Electric. I mean, you as an estate agent, what's your competitive advantage?
There's a great saying by Steve Jobs that the people who think they're crazy enough to want to change the world are the ones that do. And I would
Yeah.
say the ones that think they're crazy enough to change the industry are the ones that do. Um,
How does that help the buyer as a seller?
well, if you want to, if I'm fortunate enough to find a buyer that's got no chain attached to them, there's a very good chance I'll get it done within 28 days if you've got a mortgage. And I have
No,
it done
sorry,
with,
the seller. I mean, I'm talking from a seller's point of view now. What's your competitive advantage if you're going to pitch a seller?
my experience.
Every agent's got experience.
No, they haven't.
Says who?
But someone that's been doing the job for 2 days hasn't got experience, have they?
Okay, well, let's say you've got 15 years experience and someone else has got 20 years experience, so you haven't got an advantage.
Well, okay. So if the meeting was done on Zoom like this,
Yeah,
I would get them talking about themselves, just so I get to understand what they're all about.
yeah,
Because it's not actually about the house sale. I've said time and time again, estate agents don't sell houses. We never have done. The house sells itself. We just got to make sure it looks presentable enough and market it in the right places at the right place to get people through the door, because
Mhm.
people buy houses on emotion. You know,
yeah.
if we've learned anything over the course of the last few years, is people thrive on fear and the fear of loss. So to me, I have the competitive advantage in the fact that I don't have a contract. I have a commitment to pay. That's all. So, in essence, is if they don't believe that I'm right for the job after a period of time, then they can disinstruct me. If they want to go and employ an agent and tie themselves into a ridiculously contract to start off with, and they might have 20 years of experience, I will say to them, why do they need 16-week contracts or 20-week contracts? I say, I'm going to do this without one.
Okay, let's say you know John. We both know John Savage.
Yep, great guy.
Let's say I'm selling my house.
Hmm.
I've got you. I've got John coming to pitch me. What's your advantage over John?
What are you looking for in an estate agent?
Someone I trust.
And what do you see trust? Because that can come under many categories.
Someone who's got integrity, someone who will fight my corner, someone who will be relentless in terms of negotiation, knowing how far to push it, when to concede and accept. Someone who communicates, all those things build trust with me.
Perfect. So for me, as I said to you last time, it will be a case of THC, transparency, honesty, and communication, right?
Okay.
So to me, if I could be transparent to say, right, this is how, these are the properties that I've sold recently, which are in line with your house. This is how we marketed it. And
Yeah.
this is how we got to this price. We got a number of buyers and we got a number of offers. We lost the buyer on one of these properties, but due to having the open day, we had another buyer in place ready to just take over because we'd had everything done. We didn't delay the process for you. My skill set in selling properties is your mental health. That's it. I know how to reduce your mental health, which used to be known as stress back in the day, in selling property. So if you follow these step-by-step guides, and if you do it like this, I can assure you, you're going to have a result like this.
Okay. Next question is that something that you offer that John can't offer?
I'm not John. He's not. He's competition.
Well, that's the point I'm getting to. If what you offer, anything that you offer, can be replicated, you haven't got a competitive advantage.
No, it comes down to the like then, doesn't it?
Comes down to what?
It comes down to what you like and who you're going to trust. You know, it's you know, if you're saying to someone,
it's an emotional decision then, as opposed to a logical decision.
well, then that's your own fault for making an emotional decision.
No, I thought that's what you said. You said it's down to what you like.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. It is what you like. See, if you're time bound, you're going to need someone that's going to be, like we said, the chihuahua that's going to be biting at someone's ankles, that's going to get something done quite quickly at the right price. If you are willing to test the market in order to get the best price possible, and you've been told that this is going to take you 6 to 8 weeks to get the best buyer. I don't necessarily believe that's true, because I believe there's different ways of marketing property. I choose to go route A. Some people go route N.
I agree. There's different ways that you can pitch your proposition. What I'm saying is that if it can be replicated by another agent, it's not an advantage. So you don't have a competitive advantage.
Well, the replica of the
I know what your advantage is, but I want
what's my advantage?
Your advantage is who you are.
Yeah.
Just like John's is who he is.
Yeah.
And for me, it then becomes a matter of I don't really want to get into the weeds about whether you are better at doing your job than John. For me, it's a matter of, do I prefer working with you or do I prefer working with John? And that becomes a choice as opposed to a logical decision. And then it becomes into character. Do I prefer John's character? I mean, you're very similar. Both of you are very similar, so it would be a tough call. Do I prefer working with John? Do I prefer working with you? If it came to the situation where you stood out, let's take John out of the equation and put you up against another agent, Agent X, and I didn't like the feeling I got and the message I got from Agent X, it's a no-brainer. I go with you.
Thank you.
Your competitive advantage isn't what you say you're going to do. Your competitive advantage is you.
Yeah, but also if you do make a wrong mistake and you instruct an estate agent that you've been tied into a 16-week contract in, then if you don't get on with them after the presentation, I mean, again, take John out of the equation. Let's use a high street estate agent. If you go, actually, do you know what? Last time I sold a high street, I'm not quite on board this online estate agency quite yet. I think I'm going to go and try a high street estate agent again. You sit there, you speak to the branch manager or the lister or the valuer, whatever they're called nowadays. You sit there, have a meeting. They tell you what you want to hear. Yes, I'm going to get you whatever price it is you want to achieve. And then the next thing you know, they've got their instruction target. You're then having to deal with the team members that are in the company. You don't necessarily get on with them because you don't get the same vibe as you usually get. Whereas the meeting that you just sat in with me is, if after a week or 2 weeks you turn around and go, actually, Joe, what, Rob, you're not quite what you said you were going to do in the meeting. I'm actually going to go for the other one. So if you want to be time bound or tied into a contract and you can't do anything for 6 weeks with an underperforming agent, go with my competitor. If you want to go with someone that trusts themselves to say, do you know what, I don't need a contract, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's better for me just to walk away because it's not going to work for either of us.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be in the same situation that we were with the door knocking, that it's a choice. We're not entirely at different ends of the spectrum. You're very much into the competitive side of things, the nature of things, the interruption marketing, proving that you're better than another agent. I'm very much into the attraction as opposed to the interruption. Very much into me doing the choosing as opposed to them doing the choosing, and being more creative rather than interrupting. So, again, it comes down to personal choice. I basically feel that competition hasn't got a place in business, and it's something that Seth Godin and Simon Sinek will agree with, and I think the fact that estate agents think that they have to compete, I personally don't think they have to. I think they're told
to. But they're told to, Chris.
Yeah,
but see, the thing is it goes back to what we were saying in the previous podcast. There are going to be many things that people do or that I do that are going to ruffle people's feathers. But likewise, it will with yourself. Because it's just a different belief system. An estate agent can't be challenged because they've been forced to, a lister gets a job, they get put on their, I don't know what their salaries are nowadays, but let's just say 30 grand a year basic salary, X amount of commission for listing a property, X amount of commission for selling a property. Ironically, I don't know why, and it used to be that the lister used to get paid less than what the sellers did, which I can't quite work out why that was the case. But If an agent's been told that you need to go and get 10 instructions a month to feed the staff, and they're out of ideas and they're needing to be creative, if there's a, like I say, if they've got someone that's got to try and get a deal done because the chain's about to break, they're going to do whatever they can do with the best interest of their client. Now, not everyone's going to like their door knocking to starts like yourself, but a lot of people will go, do you know what? I haven't had anyone knock on my door to say, would I be interested to sign up for me looking for a property with them? It's how you approach the door knock. It's not the door knock in itself, it's how you approach the door knock.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of taking a slight detour there, you're saying, okay, it's how people approach it, and you know, they'll do whatever's best for their client. That is the problem with competition, that there are people in this industry, as I'm sure you'll agree, that don't do the best for their client, they do the best for themselves. You know, they'll deliberately take an instruction that they know they haven't got a cat and mouse chance of selling. They'll deliberately cut a fee just to stop someone else getting the business. They'll deliberately overvalue it, knowing full well it's not going to sell at that price, and you know, 6 months down the road it's going to have to be reduced in price. So there are people that will not do the best for their client. They're in the business, they're competing with you because you choose to compete with them. They will say whatever they have to say to get the business away from you, and it's a cutthroat business that is basically like the old Roman gladiators in the arena. You know, you're fighting to the death trying to get this business, and it's having an impact not only on the mental health of the estate agents, but on the mental health of the consumer, the potential client. You know, they're getting shafted as much as the agents are getting shafted. All because
I would necessarily agree with that.
Why not?
Well, because if we're going to look at mental health into the grand picture of property, the mental health comes down to the unknowing, the uncertainty of what's happening, right? That's the, you know, when am I going to get out of this house? When am I going to get a buyer for this property? When am I going to get into my next chapter? Okay, great, I found myself a buyer now. How long is this conveyancing process going to be, right? If it's all fragmented into a stage to say, right, realistically, if you put a house on the market at the right price, it will sell within a couple of weeks. Fact, I've done it, right? And you will sell it over the asking price. The problem is the majority of agents out there aren't confident enough in negotiating because they're not taught the way that we were used to be taught, as far as I'm aware, right? There's a lot of online programs and bits and pieces you can sign up to, and there's loads of property brokers. The truth of it is your client, if you can turn around and as I said to you, as you well know, I mean, I've got that, you know, my foundation, recognizing, acknowledging well-being. You know, that there is to demonstrate that I do understand mental health. It's not just a fad. It is a case of I understand mental health in property because I've been doing it for over 20 years. Now, you might have bought, you might have sold a house 20 years ago, bits and pieces, but the process has massively changed, and you've got to trust me in this because it's a two-way street. And if you're not prepared to trust me in this at the very beginning of the process, we may as well walk away from each other right now. So that's me looking after my mental health to say that, you know, we're not aligned. We're not on the same frequency. We're not on the same way. If you want to go down this other route because you generally believe that that is the right route, well, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you. It's not my job to try and convince you, right? Because I need you to work with me, not against me, because I want you to get to your next chapter. I want to get paid, truthfully. And when we talk about a lot of these other issues, you got to remember, Chris, a lot of these people have got families. These agents have got families. You know, this isn't a job that you go into as a property broker and know that at the end of the month you're going to get a couple of grand, right? If you haven't got any houses for sale, or you've only got a few houses under offer, it might take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even up to 8 months to get paid, right? So, in essence, it's the competition there is sometimes out of need and desperation because they haven't got enough properties. Now, you could argue that they haven't advertised themselves enough. Well, they might have not had the budget to do so. So I'm going to go out and be ahead. I'm going to be ahead of everyone else. I'm not going to be a sheep. I'm going to go and knock on people's doors to say, look, I understand you're on the market at the moment. I see you as a person that I could help potentially in the future if it's not selling, but to help move on. Here's my card. If you need to give me a call, give me a call. You know, you don't have to be banging on the door, going on, you'll see the curtain twitches and go, oh, there's someone here. I'm going to bang on the door a little bit longer to make sure someone comes and answers the door. You know, it's some are going to work and some are not. And again, it comes back to being thick enough skinned. And I'd use this to some of the, again, focus on the word some, right? Some of these other people that play a part within this industry just need to grow a backbone. It's a stressful environment.
I was going to say, do you think competition is healthy?
Yeah, of course it is.
You think
Yeah,
it's
of course
healthy?
Well, because
Wow.
if you don't have competition, how can you be better?
Why do you have to prove you're better?
It's not because you surely if you want to go and pitch the best price, you want to be the best. Like I said to you before, I'm not sitting there going watching Mrs. Miggy's estate agents to go and see exactly what they're doing in their
Well,
job. But in terms of competition of someone's got a house that I want to sell and there's a 10, 20,000 pound fee against it, well, I'd be foolish not to go and try and pitch for that business because it's an
okay.
industry.
You mentioned better. Let's say you and I go and pitch for an instruction in Hove. Okay, got the same experience as you. The issue becomes about being better, and it's something that can't be proved. If I'm their favourite and they trust me,
Right.
and I get the instruction from them, that doesn't make me a better estate agent.
It does if you sell it.
Again?
It does if you sell it.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it does because you won the instruction over me. It made you better than me.
No, it doesn't. That's basically the competition. I'm not competing with you. I'm basically their favorite. I'm basically their favorite. They trust me. It's a relationship as opposed to.
You won the competition. I came second.
It's a competition in your eyes, but it's not in mine because I wasn't competing.
But again, that's your eyes.
If I don't compete with you, we're not in competition.
But you're in competition with me because you've gone up through the same instruction. Well, no, not in your mindset. See, Chris, in your mindset, it's not competition. But for them, for the client, they go, right, I've got 4 agents that have come out, right? I wheedled it down to 2. It's going to be good between Chris and Rob, right? Chris, to be fair, he's got the edge on me because actually, do you know what? I can relate to him a bit better because he plays golf and I can talk to him about golf. And, I'm not really a big lover of boxing, so maybe we're not going to be on the same way, right? I still lost the instruction. It doesn't matter to lose, Chris, right? Losing is good, right? We need to encourage people. Losing is good. It's not a bad thing, right? I just, if people get that little bit tougher, hardened skin to rejection. I went to a fantastic training camp once, right, at Heathrow Airport, and the trainer at the time, Royston Guest, he said, "Do you know what? The best place you can ever be in a nightclub, it's on the balcony because you can see what's going on. It's not on the dance floor. Most people assume to be on the dance floor is the best place to be, but on the balcony is the better place to be because you can see what's going on." If I lost the instruction to you for this house for that 23 Acacia Avenue, the one that everyone sells in the estate agency, right? I just have to go, well, why did I lose it? There's nothing wrong to say, right, okay, for me to go back to the vendor and say, just out of curiosity, I appreciate you and I respect the fact you decided to go with Chris, but why, just can you tell me why you went with that, with Chris over me? Or just out of curiosity, because I could bear my pitch.
The answer to that would be because, Chris and I are the best fit. Not because you're better. I mean, I mentioned I brought this up with conversation with John a month or so ago in terms of don't perceive yourself as better. Try and position yourself as the best fit for the client. So the client's getting a perfect fit agent, one that they're perfectly happy with, they trust, someone who's transparent. Everything is like putting pieces of a jigsaw together. If you're not the best fit and you insist on being the best, it might well be that you're not the best fit, and that's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
True.
So if I'm pitching my business to a potential client against you, I'm not looking to prove I'm better than you. I'm looking to prove I'm different. I'm looking to prove that I am the best fit for that person as opposed to being better than you. So I'm not competing. So I will never compete with you. Even if you compete with me, I'm not competing with you.
Actually, but you're looking at it as on a personal level. From a business level, it is competition.
No, it's not. It's either a transaction or a relationship. For you, it's a transaction. For me, it's a relationship.
Yeah, but the transaction blends into a relationship. I mean, I go back to a lot of my clients over the years that, I've got some clients that I've sold their houses 4 times, in the times that they've moved. They come back to me because the trust has been, trust is very hard, as you well know, trust.
Which makes it a relationship.
Yeah, it makes the relationship, but trust is
You,
very hard.
you,
Trust is hard to get. It takes a long time to build trust. It takes seconds to lose it. Seconds to lose it. So in terms of how you perceive it to be, whether it could be competition, whether it be a relationship, the point of it is I've gone to appraise the property. You've gone to appraise the property. They've opted to you because you're the better fit for them. They haven't opted for me. I've lost the transaction. And as far as I'm complete, so second place is the first loser, which basically means I lost the competition. And I don't have a problem. And I don't have a problem with that, because all that just says is, do you know what? Either Rob, I've got to work on my skill set of being able to deal with clients who prefer to deal with you, or I go, oh, fuck it, don't worry, I'm going to go and do my own thing anyway. But so the thing is again, rejection is redirection. We said it before. I used to take rejection so badly. I used to take it so personally, and I'm like, but you know, it's all right. Do you know what I mean? Again, it could, it comes down to words. It's just words, competition. So what? You lost the competition. You come second in the egg and spoon race. I mean, even at schools nowadays can be completely off track. You get a prize for competing in a sports day competition nowadays. Back in the day, it used to be one winner, right? And there is only one winner.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that in terms of rejection is because we're not a good fit. It's not because I'm not good enough. So,
you are. But that is the case. You have to accept you're not good enough.
That's what I'm saying. Well, no, I am good enough. I'm just not a good fit.
No, you're not good enough for them. You're good enough for you, which is great. I'm not challenging that bit, but you're not good enough for them, which is why they are good enough for you. Sorry, you are good enough for them, which is why they opted for you. I'm not good enough for them, which is cool. Either I want to go and work with more of these clients, which means I've got to sharpen my pencil, or I've just got to turn around and go, do you know what? I'm probably better off mixing up with the guys down the boxing gym who are looking to sell a property, because they know me. I said this to you.
I'd argue that competence-wise, you are good enough. You're just not a good fit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you look like this, you have to accept that.
So in terms of competence, I think there's marginal improvements, incrementally better, one agent to another. And the issue that I've got is that a lot of vendors aren't competent enough or qualified enough to judge an estate agent's competence. If you tell me all the good things that you can do about your agency, and Savills come in and tell me the same thing that's good about them, I'm fairly experienced in the industry, and I still wouldn't have a clue about the intricacies of how you do your job, how Savills do their job.
But it's a people person job.
Say again?
It's a people person job.
It's very much a people, and it's a choice rather than a logical decision. So if I'm being asked to compare you against Savills, I'm not going to default to a logical decision. I'm going to make an emotional choice, and basically go with the one for me who is the best fit.
I don't own a pair of mustard cords either.
And it's, I've done it instructing my agent because basically he's the best fit for me. He might not be the best agent to sell my house. It could well be that he's not, because he's not in the area, but he's the best fit for me, and I feel perfectly happy and content to let him get on and do his job. And that's the trust factor. And
no, that's the emotional factor, because you told me yourself you instructed your estate agent because you know him personally. He's been a good support friend for you. He knows the industry. He's got a platform. It makes logical sense for you to use him because you've already got the trust there. It goes back to if you didn't know your property broker and he lived completely out the area that he does, you would never even instructed him in the first place. You would have used a local one. The thing is you want to, we are an industry. Let's be fair. Let's call a spade a spade. We're not trusted. For some reason we aren't trusted. I mean, I don't know why. But the bottom line,
I think the trust falls back to that competition aspect of things.
no,
Because
it's your belief in
well,
it.
let me finish. People are being encouraged to do things that don't engender trust. They're being encouraged to overvalue, to tie people into contracts, to do all the things that are necessary to win the competition. So that the competitive aspect of a state agency has long-term evolved that or fostered that lack of trust in the industry.
Yeah.
If people trust their estate agent, they don't need to understand how the agent does their job. I don't care how you market. I don't care how you price the property. I don't care how it's negotiated. I trust you. Just get on and do your job. But the fact that most agents these days are selling to strangers, there's no relationship before they meet the person that they're going to hopefully have a client as. So there's no transparency, there's no communication. The whole thing breaks down, and it's fostered on that belief, or my belief, that competition is encouraging those practices.
Well, I don't think. God, no, I don't think that necessarily the case. I think it's a lack of ability for people to be able to appraise. I don't use the word value because everyone's got a complete different opinion. You know, I can sit in a meeting with 3 people and I say, right, to the penny, write down how much you think your house is worth, and I mean to the penny, and I can guarantee not one of them is going to be the similar because it's just an opinion. You know. What you're getting at, and this is how I drive clients, and this is why I hope people you come to us to get some advice, is if you're spending money on canvassing, if you're spending money on marketing materials, if you're doing this, I think it was like 1 in 485 leaflets you deliver, you might get a phone call off the back of. What's the point? Go and knock on the door. You're going to save your time. Okay, you're going to get a door slammed in your face. Wow. Okay, whatever. It's not for you. Respect the fact they got a letter or a note on the door to say they don't want to be intruded on. Fine, go, walk away again, right? There are procedures and there are things in place that you can put in place to avoid having these things happen to you if they are going to be detrimental to your mental health. For you, it's not detrimental to your mental health. You just don't like door knockers. I get that, right? That's fine because it's an intrusion into your own privacy. But for someone who's got a wife at home and kids at home and you know they've got someone that's desperate to get into this house and this estate agent will not let this person into the house, and for me to go, look, I've got someone who's desperate to get into your property but for some reason will not be allowed into yours, would you allow this viewing? That's integrity of an estate agent to go, do you know what, I don't trust this one because actually I've got someone who I know is genuine who will buy this property. And as I said to you before, historically I've done that and got my client an extra 35,000 quid. She didn't instruct me initially because I was a friend. But in the end, she asked me to get involved just purely because I will stand my ground and I will back my vendors and I will certainly back my friends. So to me, door knocking should be there to warn other estate agents that if you don't do a good job, there is a very good chance that you're going to lose this instruction. I don't see there's any wrong in that. And I certainly don't get it. If a lot of these partnering agents, they pay a monthly subscription. They're only on commission only. They get no salary. They've got outgoing after outgoing after outgoing. And I've just got to say, I think that just many doors that I've gone to go and knock, I've seen the sign to say, please don't, not looking for canvases, don't like door knockers, and I go, all right, fine, walk away. Yeah. It goes back to it goes back to the competition.
Yeah.
I'm probably doing things that other people, I'm doing door knocking which other agents probably aren't, and to me that sets me out different to other people.
Yeah, I mean it all comes back excuse me, and we'll sort of start to wrap it up here. I mean it all comes back to individuals' choices. You know, you're a competitive guy, you like to go door knocking. I'm not a competitive guy. I don't like to go door knocking. That doesn't make you right and me wrong, or me right and you wrong. It's basically a personal choice. It defines who you are, and again, it gets into that best fit. Am I a best fit for a client? are you a best fit for a client? And it's really how you position yourself in the marketplace that determines your success, not what you do compared to other people, but how you position yourself in the marketplace that actually is going to, determine your success.
It's actually called an opinion.
Yeah, and everyone's got one.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got one. Yeah. It's if you go back to, like I say, we'll get this wrapped up, because it is a matter of opinion and a matter of choice, and I respect anyone that doesn't like it. I respect anyone that doesn't like doing it. Fortunately, like a lot of things, when you get to work with some of the best in the industry that do these sort of things, that looks, it's like water off the duck's back for a lot of them, and you pick up on it. Well, there was an article on the news. They're teaching kids how to use phones in schools nowadays because most of them are only used to texting. I mean, that is just the definition of insanity in itself. But so, yeah, I'm not right. I'm not wrong. You're not right. You're not wrong.
Something's just come into my mind, and let's sort of touch on it very, very, very briefly. Best agent awards, the award ceremonies. Do you think there's any value in those?
Yeah, I do. Not to win them, no, because you pay for them. But I believe that I've been lucky enough to go to the ESTAs and many other awards over the years, and in all honesty, I think estate agents have to be with estate agents, and property brokers have to be with property brokers, because there are a certain type of people, right? If you go to a normal house party event, the chances are there's two questions going to be asked: or how's the market, and how much is my house worth, right? Before they've even asked what you've been getting up to over the course of the last few years. That's all people are interested in. So I believe that the awards there are actually a great thing for agents to collaborate, to get ideas, to go, actually, do you know what, if that's working for you, I'm not going to copy you, but I might adapt that into my industry, into my way.
That's certainly a very valid point. In terms of positioning someone, I mean, they say best agent. Is the person who wins the award the best agent?
Well, out of the votes situation, well, yeah. But if I haven't paid whatever amount of money it is to get into the competition,
Exactly,
does that mean,
yeah. Which makes it basically a worthless award?
No, I don't think it's a worthless award. I think it's, to get a recognition of something, at the end of the day, someone's got to pay for the award, someone's got to pay for the dinner table, someone's got to pay for the event, so if you've got hundreds of agents all going into, whether it be the ESTAs or, probably, well, I don't know, there's hundreds of them out there nowadays. I'm not going to be going to again, it depends if you need that award to be told that you're the best. That's one thing. I've got an award up here because I won a bathtub race. Does that make me the best person to build a bathtub? No, it doesn't. But it's again, Chris, we have to accept that people have got different opinions, different generations. What's the Michael Mechanics saying? Every generation wants to blame the other generation.
I'm just winding you up, Rob.
That's all right. You can't wind me up. I've told that before.
I enjoyed it again tremendously. It's been great talking to you last weekend and this weekend. Hopefully we can have more stimulating conversations. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, my man. And you have a good week ahead.
And you, my friend. I'll speak to you soon.